right, folks, for today's portion of math, remember we are going to be doing multiple topics a week and then spiraling back throughout the school year until you master it. So today we're doing something called estimation and rounding. Well, actually, rounding first. First we round and then we estimate. So let me grab my marker here. Let's talk about rounding. So if I have the number 13 and I want to round to the nearest tens place, how would I go about doing that? So the first thing I want you to notice is that when I'm talking about rounding, I've talked about which place value I want to round to. And that's going to help us when we have larger numbers with a lot of different possibilities. And I'm going to look at the number right next to that number on the right-hand side. And there's a quick little, not jingle, but a little thing you can remember or memorize to help you remember. Four or more, or sorry, not four or more, five or more up the score. Four or less, let it rest. So what this means is if this number here is five or greater, if the number to the right of the place value you're looking for is five or greater, then this number increases. If it's four or less, it's going to go, it's going to round down to 10, or in some cases, it'll stay exactly where it's at that number. That's where I get to let it rest part of the run. So let's look at some more concrete examples. So if I have the number 325 and I want to round it to the nearest hundred, I'm going to be looking here, right? That's my hundreds place, that 3. I'm going to go right next to it. This is the number I'm going to check. And it's a 2, which is less than 4. It's 4 or less. So we're going to let it rest. We're not going to take it up to that next level. We're going to bring it down. And so the closest 100 to this 3 is 300. So it's going to round down to 300. Okay. Another example, let's say we had 17, and I want to round to the nearest tens place. Well, here's our tens place. 7 is next to it, and that's 5 or more. So we're going to up the score, and we're going to round that to about 20. Okay. So hopefully this is making sense. Don't worry if it's not, because we're still going to meet together today in a small group to discuss this. So if you have something like 1,239, and I say I want you to round to the nearest tens place, I'm going to go here. I'm going to be looking here and at the number to the right because that's the tens place. So these are the numbers here. They're not going to be affected by my rounding up, down, or whatever. So here, the number next to that 3, that's 9. That's 5 or greater. So we're going to round up to the next available 10, and that's going to be 1240, right? So now we have that out the way, you need to be able to make estimations by rounding and then solving. So for example, if I have, let me put Mr. Hill, if I have $120 and my brother has $301, and I want to know, like, hey, on average, not on average, but roughly how much do we have together if you combine both of what we have together? So since you want to know roughly what we'll have together, I'm going to estimate, I'm going to round first and then estimate what that number might be. So here, 120, right? So I'm looking at rounding to the nearest hundreds place. So I'm looking at this one, I'm looking at the number next to it. It's in the tens place. And it's a 2, which is less than the number we need to go up, which is 5. So you're going to round this down. We're going to round this down to 100. And same thing here. I'm here at the 300. The number next to me is 1 and our 0. And that is not greater than 5 or greater. It's 4 or less. So we're going to go down to 300. And then on the last step, we're going to add these together. And that's going to be 400. Okay. So it's really simple. You want to just round and estimate what you have with your totals. And then sometimes you might have to do operations with those numbers. So those are the two things that you need to know. And we will discuss this more in our meeting right after our morning meeting, and you've had time to overlook this. So good luck, and I'll see you later in our small group.